Tommy, please, please, I'll go. I'll disappear. You'll never see me again, I swear on my mother.
Goodbye, Janet.
Say it again, Janet. Say what you said in front of my father. Thomas Sand's fingers were already around her wrist when she realized the rooftop door had locked behind them. 87 floors. Manhattan, glittering like spilled diamonds. Wind so loud it ate her first scream before it left her mouth. Tommy, you're hurting me. I asked you a question. He yanked her closer to the ledge. The gravel under her heels gave way like sand. You stood in my father's study and called me what? I didn't... A coward. His laugh was the worst sound she'd ever heard from a man's mouth. You called a sand a coward. In our own house. Tommy, the earrings. You said you had my mother's earrings. I lied. The ledge kissed the small of her back. Janet Carmel had 31 years of memories, and every single one of them arrived at once. Her father at the piano, the smell of turpentine in the museum basement, a man named Jae Shin, who once told her, very quietly, "If you ever need me, I will already be there." Tommy, please, please, I'll go. I'll disappear. You'll never see me again, I swear on my mother. I know you won't. He let go of one wrist, used the free hand to brush a curl off her forehead, almost tender. Goodbye, Janet. And then he pushed. The sky and the city traded places. Her own scream was a stranger's voice in her ears. 87 floors became 86, became 85, became... arms. Not concrete, arms. Steel cable bit into a harness she couldn't see. A chest that smelled like cedar and something darker caught her ribs hard enough to bruise. A helicopter rotor chopped the air 6 feet above her head, and a voice, low, accented, unbothered, spoke directly into her ear like they were sharing a pew at church. Breathe, Mrs. Shin, I have you. She looked up, black hair whipping in the rotor wash, a jaw cut from the same stone as the building she'd just been thrown off. And eyes. God, the eyes. Looking at her the way a man looks at the only thing in a burning house worth saving. I'm not... Her teeth were chattering. I'm not Mrs. Shin. I'm not anyone's. You are. Jae Shin's gaze lifted past her, up to the rooftop, where Thomas Sand was just now leaning over the ledge to confirm his work. And the man who just threw my wife off a building is about to learn what kind of mistake that was. The wind ripped the words out of Jay's mouth before Janet could finish processing them. She felt his good arm lock under her thighs, the bad one, though she didn't know it was bad yet, clamped across her back like a vice that had decided dying was not an option for either of them. The harness above them shrieked under their combined weight. Somewhere inside Jay's body, something gave. A wet pop she felt through his suit jacket. He didn't make a sound. She made the sound for him. Your shoulder! Later, Mrs. Shin. Your shoulder is out! Later. The pilot, a woman, Janet realized through the rotor scream, a woman with a long black braid and a voice like crushed gravel, was shouting in Korean into her headset. Then in English. Then in something Janet thought might be Russian. Jay spoke once into his own mic. 2 syllables. Calm. The helicopter banked hard left, away from the sand tower, away from the man on the rooftop who was still squinting down into the dark, trying to figure out why the body of his ex-girlfriend had not yet hit Park Avenue. Janet pressed her face into Jay's collarbone because there was nowhere else to put it. He smelled like cedar and gunpowder and the inside of a car that had been driven a long way fast. Her ribs burned. Her left ankle was screaming a song she could not name. I don't understand, she whispered. Into his coat, into a stranger's collarbone, except he was not a stranger, except she had been pretending he was. I don't understand any of this. I know. You said wife. I did. Jay, you said wife. His good hand came up and held the back of her head. Not possessive, not romantic. The way you hold something that is shaking apart in your arms because the alternative is to let it shake apart alone. Sleep if you can. We will be on the ground in 4 minutes. She didn't sleep. She watched, over his shoulder, as the rooftop of the sand tower shrank into a postage stamp behind them. And on that postage stamp, a tiny figure in a tuxedo was running, actually running, back toward the rooftop door. Because Thomas Sand had just realized something. His rooftop security feed had cut out 4 minutes ago. She thought she'd been unconscious for an hour. She'd been unconscious for 9. The first thing she saw was a ceiling she did not own, hand-painted, cranes, real ones in gold leaf, flying across plaster the color of unbleached silk. The second thing she saw was an IV taped to her left hand. The third thing she saw was him. Jae was not at the foot of her bed. He was in a chair pulled 6 feet away from it, a respectful distance, the kind of distance a man chooses when he is trying very hard not to be the next thing that frightens her. His left arm was in a sling. His shirt cuffs were rolled to the elbow. There was dried blood on the inside of his right wrist that he had not yet noticed, or had noticed and decided not to clean until she woke up. She made a sound. He was on his feet before the sound was a word. Don't try to sit up. 3 ribs. Hairline fracture in the left fibula. Dr. Pio says you will be running again in 6 weeks. She does not lie about timelines. Jae. Water first. He brought the glass himself, held the straw to her mouth, did not touch her face. Janet drank, and the water hurt going down because her throat was raw from a scream that had echoed off 40 floors of glass on the way down. She told herself it was just the water that made her eyes burn. It wasn't. Where am I? My home, the one you have not been to. How long? 9 hours. The press does not know yet. The police do not know yet. Thomas Sand is in his apartment 3 blocks south of here drinking, and he believes you are dead at the bottom of an elevator shaft. We have allowed him to believe that for the next 22 hours. Why? Jae sat back down, 6 feet away, hands folded. Because in 22 hours, he will do something stupid. He will try to clean up. He will make a phone call he should not make. He will go somewhere he should not go. And when he does, the recording I have already given the district attorney will become the second nail in his coffin instead of the only one. She stared at him. You're letting him think he killed me. For one night, yes. That's... She searched for the word. Couldn't find a clean one. That's cruel, Jae. It is. And you're fine with that? No, he said quietly. I am not fine with it, but I am willing to do it. Those are different things, and I would like you to know I understand the difference. She thought she had him figured out. She was so wrong it almost broke something in her chest she could not afford to break. Jae? Yes. You said wife. On the helicopter. You said Mrs. Shin. He did not look away. That was the thing about him she would learn over and over again, in larger and larger doses, until she stopped being surprised by it. He did not look away from things. Not from her. Not from himself. You signed papers in March. For protection. For a marriage. The protection was the reason. The marriage was the document. She closed her eyes. You knew I didn't understand. I knew you were choosing not to. Those are different also. Is everything different and the same with you? Most things, yes. She wanted to be angry. She tried to be angry. The anger kept slipping off her like water off a window because every time she reached for it, she remembered the wind and the ledge and the particular sound of her own name in Thomas Sand's mouth 1 second before the world tipped over. Jae, where is Thomas right now? I told you, his apartment. And tomorrow? A pause, long enough for her to count her own pulse in the IV line. Tomorrow, Mrs. Shin, my wife is going to have a choice to make, and whatever she chooses, I will do. Thomas Sand made the phone call at 4:17 the next afternoon. He did not know it, but a small black device the size of a grain of rice had been resting inside the brass lamp on his bedside table for 6 weeks. He did not know it had been placed there by a woman who had once delivered his dry cleaning and had her name on no payroll he could trace. The call was to a man named Petrov, who ran a private waste removal company out of a warehouse in Red Hook. The call lasted 11 seconds. The thing on my roof. Tonight. No paperwork. That was all the prosecution would ever need. Thomas hung up, poured himself a third glass of his father's bourbon, walked to his bathroom, looked in the mirror, and said out loud, to nobody, "I had to." He went back to his bedroom to change his shirt. The man sitting on his bed was not anyone he had ever seen before. Korean, maybe 40, wearing a suit that fit him better than any suit Thomas had ever owned, and holding, not a gun, which would have been easier, a small white envelope. "Mr. Sand, good afternoon. My employer's wife sends her regards." Thomas's bourbon glass hit the carpet. His what? His wife, Mr. Sand. The man set the envelope on the duvet, stood, walked to the door. "There is a car downstairs. You will get into it. You will say nothing on the way. If you reach for your phone, the man driving the car has been instructed to break your hand. He has a history of being literal." "You don't understand who my father—" "Your father stopped taking calls from anyone who matters at 3 o'clock this afternoon. That is in the envelope. Please be downstairs in 11 minutes. He left. Thomas Sand opened the envelope with hands that had begun to shake without his permission. Inside was one piece of paper, a marriage certificate, State of New York, filed March 14th. Janet Marie Carmel and Jae Shin. He read it 3 times. He went downstairs in 9 minutes. Janet should not have been there. Dr. Pyo had said so in 3 languages. Jae had not said so, which was its own answer. She stood in a borrowed wool coat on the rooftop where, 26 hours earlier, she had been inventory at the bottom of a man's grudge. The wind had not changed. The skyline had not changed. The gravel under her boots was the same gravel that had given way under her heels. The only thing that had changed was who was on his knees. Thomas Sand was at the ledge, hair wet from a bucket of water somebody had upended over him, mouth gagged with what looked like one of his own silk ties. Bare feet because Cyrus Whitfield, Cyrus, her doorman, Cyrus, good morning, Mr. Whitfield, have a blessed one, Miss Carmel, had taken Thomas's shoes somewhere between the elevator and the rooftop door. Cyrus did not look at her. Janet understood, suddenly, that Cyrus had said good morning to her every day for 2 years on a payroll that did not belong to her building's management company. Bomsu, the second man, was a stranger. Bomsu had a face like a closed door. Bomsu was the one who had carried Thomas up the stairwell. Jae stepped forward. My wife asked me, in the helicopter, not to kill you. Thomas's eyes, pinned and white and human in a way Janet had never seen them, rolled to her face. She did not nod. She did not shake her head. She just looked at him, the way a restorer looks at a forgery, noting the brushwork, the cracks, the places where the paint had been laid thin to hide the damage underneath. Thomas Sand looked away first. She did not, however, Jae continued, ask me to spare you fear. That was an oversight on her part. I do not intend to correct it. He nodded once. Cyrus and Bomsu lifted Thomas to his feet, walked him to the ledge, turned him around so his heels were over open air, exactly where Janet's had been. You once told my wife, Jae said, quietly enough that the wind almost took it, that she should be grateful a sand had ever touched her. Thomas's face went the color of wet paper. I am going to ask you to think about that sentence for the next 3 seconds, and then I am going to give you a small lesson in gratitude. He pushed. Thomas screamed, not the way men scream in movies, not the way he had screamed at her on the rooftop the night before. He screamed the way an animal screams when the floor of the world drops out from under it, and there is no audience, and no dignity, and no father's name to spend. He screamed high. He screamed wet. He screamed without language. The cable caught him at the 80th floor. 7 floors of nothing. 7 floors of full body weight against gravity. 7 floors of his own bourbon coming up the back of his throat, and his bladder letting go, and his brain, the patient, vain, expensively educated brain, finally understanding the precise quality of fear it had asked Janet Carmel to feel one night earlier. The harness held. It had been rigged under his suit jacket while he was unconscious in the back of the car, by a man who had been doing this kind of work since before Thomas Sand was born. He was never in any actual danger. He did not know that. He hung there, 400 feet above Park Avenue, sobbing into his gag, his $3,000 pants ruined, his Patek Philippe still ticking away the seconds of the worst minute of his life. Jae walked to the ledge, did not look down, spoke just loud enough for the wind to take it. Now you know what she felt. Now you will spend the rest of your life remembering it. And when they ask you, in court, why you confessed, you will tell them it is because you were afraid I would do this again. He paused. And you will not be wrong. He turned away from the ledge. Cyrus and Byung-soo began the slow work of cranking Thomas back up. Janet stood very still in her borrowed coat. Her hand was over her mouth, and she did not remember putting it there. Jae crossed to her, stopped at the same 6-foot distance he had kept in the bedroom. Are you all right? She was not. She nodded anyway, because the thing happening in her chest was louder than the thing happening on the ledge, and she was afraid if she opened her mouth, the wrong one would come out. I want to go home. My home or yours? She looked at him, at the sling on his arm, at the stubble he had not shaved, at a man who had jumped out of a helicopter for a wife he had never kissed and had then, 26 hours later, dangled her would-be murderer off the same ledge for exactly the right amount of time, and not 1 second longer. I haven't decided yet. Then we will go to yours, and I will sit in the lobby until you do. He did, for 9 hours. If this story is hitting, do me one favor, tap subscribe right now and turn the bell on. What Agent Okonkwo brings into Janet's museum next week is the kind of plot turn that makes the rooftop look gentle. Here's what she didn't know about Jae Shin until that night. The man had a stillness in him that scared his own people. The night doorman, not Cyrus, the other one, a kid named Devon who had been on the job for 6 weeks, would later tell his sister that a Korean man in a black suit had walked into the lobby at 11:47 p.m. and sat down in the leather chair facing the elevator and not moved. Not for water, not for the bathroom, not to check a phone. Devon had checked on him at 2 a.m. because he was starting to wonder if the man was dead. Sir, can I get you anything? No, thank you. Are you waiting for a resident? My wife. Which apartment, sir? I can call up... Please don't. Devon went back to his desk. He looked up at the security monitor. He saw Jae Shin sit in the same position for the next 4 hours and 42 minutes without crossing his legs once. Upstairs, on the 14th floor, Janet Carmel sat on the edge of her own bed in her own apartment, in a t-shirt that smelled like her old laundry detergent, and listened to the radiator click, and thought about a man who did not assume. At 8:03 a.m., she came downstairs in jeans. Jae stood the moment the elevator opened. She walked across the lobby, stopped a foot in front of him. Have you eaten? No. There's a diner on the corner. They make terrible coffee. I would love some terrible coffee. She told herself, walking out the door beside him, that she still didn't love him. She told herself that. It mattered. She made one critical error in that diner. She let him order for her. It was such a small thing. Sliced tomato, 2 eggs over easy, dry toast. She had eaten that breakfast every Saturday for 11 years and never once told him so. He had watched her once, in passing, at a hotel buffet in their 2nd month of dinners, and remembered. She watched him order without consulting her, and she felt something in her chest fold in half. Jae. Yes. I want you to tell me everything you have ever lied to me about, by omission or otherwise, right now in this booth before the food gets here, and then I will decide what to do. He set down the menu. He thought. The thing about Jae Shin, the thing she would understand more deeply later, was that when he thought, he was not constructing. He was sorting. He kept a ledger of his own truths, and he was a man who knew where his own knives were buried. There is a microphone in the lapel pin Haewon gave you the morning of the wedding. She did not move. I have only listened to it when you were outside your apartment. I have not listened to anything private. Haewon removed it from your coat in the helicopter. What else? Cyrus Whitfield has worked for me for 4 years. He took the doorman job at your building 8 months before I met you. I did not arrange for you to live in that building, but when I met you and learned where you lived, I did not move him. What else? 3 months before our wedding, a man employed by Thomas Sand was inside your apartment. He took photographs. He is in a coma in a hospital in New Jersey. He will not wake up. The man who put him there is Haewon. She did not ask my permission. I would have given it. Janet's hands were flat on the table. The waitress set down 2 coffees and walked away without speaking, the way good waitresses do when they sense the temperature of a booth. What else? 2 other men employed by Thomas Sand were on a boat off the coast of Long Island 4 months ago. The boat sank. Their bodies have not been recovered. That one was me. She breathed in. She breathed out. What else? Nothing else, Janet. That is the ledger. Ask me anything, and if there is more, I will find it. She picked up her coffee. It was, as advertised, terrible. I want you to keep telling me the truth, even when the truth is a knife. Especially then. Especially then. The eggs came. They ate. She did not yet know, she would not know for another 6 weeks, that an FBI agent named Nasim Okonkwo had been sitting 3 booths behind them, in a Yankees cap and reading glasses, listening to every word. The badge hit Janet's work table like a teacup on porcelain. She was in her basement room at the Met, hunched over a 16th-century Italian saint with a cracked cheekbone. Saint Cecilia, patron of the falsely accused, patron of musicians, patron of women who keep singing while they bleed. Mrs. Shin, Nasim Okonkwo, FBI. I've been building a case against your husband for 4 years. I think we should talk. Janet did not look up from her brush. I'm working. I'll wait. She did. 47 minutes. Janet finished a 0.5 millimeter section of pigment along St. Cecilia's jaw, set the brush down, removed her loupe, and finally turned around. Agent Okonkwo was black, mid-50s, wearing a coat that had been tailored and a wedding ring on her right hand instead of her left, which Janet noted without knowing yet why she was noting it. My husband saved my life, Agent Okonkwo. I know he did. I have the helicopter footage. I also have you on a recorder in a diner 6 weeks ago, but we'll come back to that. Janet's stomach did something cold. What do you want? I want you to know who you married. That's all. I'm not asking you to flip. I'm asking you to be informed. There's a difference, and I think you, of all people, will understand it. She slid a single photograph across the work table. It was a man, mid-30s, Korean, lying in a hospital bed in what Janet recognized, from the curtain pattern, as somewhere in the New Jersey medical system. This is the man your husband's lieutenant put in a coma for breaking into your apartment. His name is Min-Jun Park. He was a freelancer. He has a 6-year-old daughter in Queens whose mother does not know where her father's medical bills are coming from. They are coming, by wire, from a numbered account in Macau. I'll let you guess whose. Janet looked at the photograph. She looked at St. Cecilia. She looked at Agent Okonkwo. He had photographs of me in my bedroom. I know. My husband told me about him, 3 days after it happened. I know that too. Then what do you want from me, Agent Okonkwo? The agent leaned forward. I want you to know that the man you married is paying the medical bills of the man he had crippled for you. And I want you to ask yourself what kind of man does that? Because I have been chasing your husband for 4 years, and that is the question I cannot answer, and I think you might be able to. She left the photograph. She left the badge. She left. Janet sat in front of St. Cecilia for a long time. She did not pick up her brush. She picked up her phone. She did not call the FBI. She called Jae. Min-Jun Park. A pause. The longest one she had ever heard from him. Yes. You are paying his medical bills. Yes. His daughter's school? Through high school. her college if she chooses to attend. Why? Because Haewon did not ask my permission, and the man's daughter did not either. The man's choices are his, the child's are not. She closed her eyes. Come home, Jae. I will be there in 20 minutes. Thomas Sand took the plea 2 days before trial. The papers said it was the recording. The papers were half right. The recording was a mountain. The pebble was the rest. For 17 nights, a quiet man had moved into the cell next to his. The man was Korean, mid-40s, with a face like a closed door. He did not threaten Thomas. He did not speak to Thomas. He did not look at Thomas. Every night at exactly 3 a.m., he tapped one pebble against the shared wall. Tap. Once. Just enough to wake him, just enough that on the 19th night, when Thomas Sand's third court-appointed attorney sat down across from him and said, "They're offering 25 years, 15 no parole. Take it or you walk into a courtroom with a recording of you saying goodbye, Janet." Thomas Sand wrote his name on the line in handwriting that did not resemble his own. The quiet man transferred out of Rikers the next morning. There is no record of him ever having been there. His name is not in the story because his name is not the kind of name that goes into stories. Jae came home that night. Not to the lobby, to the apartment, to the bedroom Janet had slept in alone for 3 months of a marriage she had not yet decided was real. He stood in the doorway with his sling finally off, a small velvet box in his good hand, and he said, "I have something that belongs to you. I have had it 3 weeks. I was waiting until I knew you wanted it from me." She sat up. He crossed the room, sat on the edge of the mattress at exactly the distance she could reach if she chose to. He opened the box. Pearl earrings, her grandmother's, her mother's, the ones Thomas had used as bait, the ones a pawn shop in Queens had bought from her father 3 months after her mother's funeral. How? The pawn shop kept records longer than it should have. The buyer sold them to a collector in Boston, the collector to a dealer in London, the dealer to a woman in Seoul who, as it happens, owed me a favor older than she is. Janet held one earring up to the lamplight. "My father." "Your father was $20,000 in debt the month after your mother died. I have his ledger. He did not gamble it. He did not drink it. He paid your tuition with it, Janet. Your first semester at Columbia, the semester after she died." She sat very still. "He never told me." He was ashamed. "He should have told me." "Yes, he should have. But he didn't, and now you know, and the rest is yours." She put the earrings on, both of them, sitting up in bed in a t-shirt with her ribs almost healed, and a husband she had, finally that morning, allowed herself to call a husband out loud. "Jae." "Yes." "You can come closer." He did. Not all the way, just to the place on the bed where she could reach his hand. She did. He let her. They sat there in the lamplight for a long time, two people who had been waiting longer than either of them knew to be in the same room and stop pretending. "I am not a good man, Janet." "I know. I have done things you will never approve of." "I know. I will not do them to you, or near you, or in your name, unless you ask." "I know." "Then what do you want?" She thought about it, about the rooftop, about the helicopter, about a sate with a cracked cheekbone, about a father who had loved her badly, and a man who loved her well, and a city full of people who did not know her name. "I want you to stay, and I want you to keep telling me the truth, even when the truth is a knife." Especially then. Especially then. He brought her hand to his mouth. He did not kiss it. He held it there, against his lips, long enough that she felt his pulse through his wrist, and her own pulse answered it. 87 floors above Manhattan, on the rooftop of the Sand Tower, a janitor named Hector Mendez was sweeping up a small pile of gravel that had not yet been replaced. He found a single pearl in the gravel, a real one, small as a tooth, that had come out of an earring backing the night of the incident the police were still asking him about. He put it in his pocket. He took it home to his daughter, who was 9, and who put it in a small wooden box she had been given for her first communion, and who did not yet know that on the other side of the city, a woman she would never meet had just told her husband, for the first time, yes. The wind picked up over the rooftop. It knocked over an empty bottle, and somewhere down on Park Avenue, a black SUV pulled away from the curb and disappeared into traffic, carrying a man and his wife home. If you made it here, you're my kind of person. Janet's story is not over. Jae Shin lands at JFK in 7 days, and she is not happy about her brother's American wife. Agent Okonkwo is not finished. She has the diner recording, and she has not yet decided what to do with it. And there is a man named Ji Hwan in Queens who has just figured out that the easiest way to reach Jae Shin is through a woman named Mrs. Shin. Subscribe so you don't miss part 2. Hit the bell and drop a comment telling me, would you have let Jae push Thomas off that ledge, or would you have stopped him? I'll see you in the next one.